What's up, mob? Hey, I got a special interview for you today. I talked to Adam Bailey, the CEO of World Supercross, and I had some questions. I wanted them answered. I wanted to know why World Supercross says that they're at this historic run when they're only been for 1 year. I think it's kind of stupid, but he explained it, and I accepted his answer, kind of. But you guys know me. I asked him about WADA, because that's a big issue. I mean, that was a big problem over here, and they have it in that series, and it's something they're working on. So listen to his answer about that, And I talked to him about some of the riders they could bring over here and some of the contractual problems. It's mind-blowing the amount of effort that is being put into shutting this series down by the United States promoters and their partners, the manufacturers. I cannot believe they won't let these guys who are not riding this summer go over there and race. He wouldn't say it. I'll say it. I found out through my own research that Cooper Webb is being held back from racing World Supercross because his KTM contract won't allow him. They won't let him out of it. He doesn't have to race this summer, but if he does, it has to be in the Outdoor Nationals. They will not let him go race World Supercross, even if it's on a KTM. So they'd rather he sit out than race World Supercross. Mind-blowing, guys. So stupid. But yeah, take a listen, and yeah, I'm excited for this series. I'm working on something with my buddy Johnny Hopper. We're trying to make it happen to where we can give you a different type of broadcast. We're calling it unfiltered. So we're trying to figure out how to get rights to not do a watch party with us, but like if you don't want to listen to Ralph and Jeff, because that's the announcers for World Supercross, you watch it over on a specific YouTube channel, either mine, Hopper's, or the World Supercross channel, and you'll get what we're calling the unfiltered broadcast, where me and Johnny, listen, it's not going to be professional. We're going to call the race. We're going to probably talk some silly stuff. We're for sure going to argue. But we're going to try and do the unfiltered version of World Supercross and see if you guys like it. We'll give you something else. Like I say, if you don't want to listen to Ralph and Jeff, you'll be able to hopefully listen to me and Johnny, which probably is 100 times worse, but it is what it is. Hey guys, I want to thank EBC. We got the new setup here with the slat wall from Epic Garage Designs. This is one of the coolest things you can do to your garage. Just go on to epicgaragedesigns.com and buy yourself some slat wall. It's inexpensive. Yeah, get it, make it look clean in your garage, make it look good. Also, I want to thank Coach Rob, Complete Racing Solutions. Coach Rob is the best when it comes to training you, making you durable. And also, guys, my buddy, Strapped, ridestrapped.com. Get yourself some goggles. We've got We the People, the other ones that cause all the problems, but they're great goggles. So anyway, guys, without further ado, let's get into this Adam Bailey interview.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
Right, so I've got the head man, Adam Bailey of WSX. What's happening, dude?
I'd say not much, but plenty. It's 9:30 a.m. here, and been on the phone since 6 a.m. So it's just another day in paradise.
Tell me you didn't have a heart attack when you saw Ken Roczen pull off with his leg like that.
I had a mini heart attack. I did have a mini heart attack. But you know what I actually did? Because I was watching with my wife, and I actually laughed. I was like, fucking, of course he's going to hurt himself. It's just one of those things that does, when life throws you challenges and you just kind of laugh and go, well, that's the way it is. So anyway, didn't get us down for long. I'm glad that he's going to be okay and everything seems positive. So, but for sure, a little part of me stressed for a second there.
Okay, so I'm on board with the World Supercross, and I love the way that you guys have structured the teams and the series, and I think it's a functional model. But can you explain to my viewers how the World Supercross works and kind of how it's different than like the Feld model, or just break it down?
For sure. Well, one of the first things that we wanted to do was protect the teams, because we know, in Supercross racing, traditionally, the only teams that can prosper are factory-owned teams that have, budgets that are enormous compared to the rest. And we knew that to attract teams into this, we're going to need to create something for them that could build value and something they could own, long term. So, and what we did, it's not revolutionary. We just followed what's worked as the charter system in NASCAR, licensing system in Formula One, although that's been around obviously for a lot longer, MotoGP as well, where you just create exclusive licenses for the team owners. We decided 10 was the number. We just literally decided, let's go 10 with 4 riders on each. That covers the 2 classes. And with that, we paid them, and we're paying them over the course of 3 years an establishment fee to help them get started, which is basically a $600,000, $650,000 check to them, as opposed to them buying the license, to them to get established. So buy infrastructure, bikes, things that they need to be ready to travel around the world. And we committed that over the 3 years. And then we pay them an appearance fee per event of $50,000. So each of them, so each team gets $50,000 upon arrival at each event. And that's, they can use that to cover salaries, travel, all those things. And then the third one is freight. So we limited the freight, so they each get 3 boxes each. So they could essentially take 6 bikes across the 4 riders. And we gave them, we had the boxes made, and then we pay for the air freight of those around the world to each of the rounds, which is a good saving for them as well, because they're obviously not needing transporters necessarily, not needing obviously to get all their own stuff around, or awning, truck awnings, pit setups, all that thing. It just kind of streamlines it. And really that was kind of built off the back of a MotoGP on the road kind of flyaway model. Like when MotoGP comes here to Australia, if you go to Phillip Island to watch that event, all their stuff's in boxes. They don't have big trucks and transporters like they do when they're in Europe. And that's the way they get around. Or Speedway GP, exactly the same thing. They just have the cases. It limits what the teams can bring, which is a cost saver as well. Like, because in racing, as you would well know, you sometimes have to save the teams from themselves. You have to prevent them from being able to spend too much money. And when you limit the amount of freight that they can bring, it means that they can only spend so much. You can only fit so much into those boxes. And we did the same when it comes to staff. We limited it to 12 team members for the team. So then they can't bring four data guys, 2 suspension guys, plus the mechanics, plus everyone else. So we tried to limit that again, just to kind of keep it fair, between the 10 teams. So it's the racing stays equal. So, over time, that's the model, is that the value of those teams goes up, because which I feel like we're already seeing that gets interest from outside. Manufacturers start to show interest, but the only way that they can get involved is through one of those 10 teams. So any of the manufacturers, anyone wants a team, they've got to choose one of those 10 teams and support them, as opposed to just being able to turn up with their own transporter and then devalue the teams that have invested early,
So one of the things that really drives me crazy is the profit split between the American Series. Like, the way I've broke it down, they get about 6 to 8% goes back to the riders. But sounds like you're using kind of the Formula One model, where at the end of the year, Formula One splits it with the teams 50-50. Is there, as it grows, is there going to be an equity split with the teams?
It's not off the table. I think what we've done is commit to an upfront stable payment to begin with, whilst we're getting established. So they know they've got X amount of money to go sign riders, etc., and do what they've got to do. But as the series grows, could there be split of broadcast revenue or ticketing revenue? I think we'll see which areas of the business are performing, and then incentivize on that way. Formula One is unique because they kind of make up the rules as they go into what teams get what. They've got a historic payment for Ferrari, which is, $30 odd million a year, which is just because it's Ferrari, and then they give a similar payment, but less to Red Bull, just because it's Red Bull and their investment back into the sport. Like, it's not exactly, equal, but at the same time, you do have to manage in a way the support to the teams. And as the thing grows, we need them to grow and be successful for our success. I think that's the difference with this model, is we need them, because the more viable they are, the better riders they can hire, the better their equipment becomes. The whole thing lifts. If all those teams are making a ton of money, then they can pay the best riders a ton of money, and the whole thing grows, which helps us. So that's kind of what the view is on all that.
And now the teams have to produce 4 riders, right? 2 250 and 2 450 guys. What happens when they're hurt? Are these, say I'm Moto Concept, I'm Tony Alessi, my guy's hurt, Cole can't go. Where do they pull these riders? Do they have to come up with their own riders? I've heard a lot of different things about having maybe 4 guys ready to go that the teams all chip in on. Have you guys decided on anything like that?
At this stage, it's that the teams have other guys that they're in contact with that are waiting in the wings, and they can substitute someone in without kind of penalty on our side, I guess. And due to, we have clauses in the agreement that if someone gets hurt practicing for WSX in the week of, then they don't get penalized, obviously, for not turning up with their 4 riders. But what we would do is give one of our wild cards or bring an extra wild card in, in that case. But if a team just turns up with 2 riders and not 4 and says, well, we didn't sign anyone, then there's from our side, there's got to be penalties involved in that. So we're very much kind of working with them. If there's an injury, we'll position a wild card. We have wild cards in each region that are on the waiting list, I guess, so to speak. Now we've only got two positions in each class for wild cards. And if someone falls out with injury, we can offer it to a third or what have you. So that's the way we're sort of dealing with it at this point in time.
Well, and I think finding a wild card when you're in Australia, that's not a problem because you guys kind of run it with the Australian series the night before, which is so cool. And I think that's kind of like it really represents what the World Supercross could be, something that could feed every national series. And it saddens me the way that the United States has, instead of choosing to embrace that, they're battling that. But yeah, where do you see it with the national series in addition to it?
I mean, that model that we're running here in Australia is the model we like and we want to run with. There is complexity that we're in discussions with the Triple Crown guys in Canada about doing the same. And we've had discussions in Asia about, but it'll take more time about doing the same, where you've got an Asian championship. There's actually really good riders in Thailand and Indonesia. By really good, I mean, they can ride Supercross, but are they of US standard or World Championship standard? No, but they could have a national championship, in a couple of years' time and come and compete, and that be the stepping stone, to get the whole thing kicked off. And it's the same with, if we go to India has a national Supercross championship. Again, the standard is not where it needs to be. But if they're racing against each other to begin with, then that is fine because they start to get their experience levels up. They start to race on the proper real Supercross tracks, and it helps build the thing. So that's the ultimate for us, is to have, a relationship with the national championship in all of these regions. So that in the same way, again, MotoGP does here, the Australian Superbike Championship races on the same weekend as the MotoGP event, and then there's often wildcard riders that maybe race in that, in the MotoGP categories or the World Superbike categories or whatever the case may be. So for us, definitely collaborating. We want to build up the national series, in each region, because that helps us funnel riders into WSX in time, as opposed to saying we've got to go to the US to collect all the Supercross riders. The more we build up the talent pool around the world by offering the domestic series an opportunity to grow, the more we deepen the talent pool, the more we get international riders. I mean, Brazil has a great national championship as well. Argentina does. There is championships around the world, where riders are of a good standard. The UK has a good arena cross series as well. How do we sort of work with all them so that they're funneling talent through, so we're getting a whole range of new talent rather than just trying to, encourage the existing ones to come across?
Yeah, absolutely. And now what really confused me last year about the series is, so it's the inaugural series. It's the first couple of races. And I hear the announcers saying that this has a rich history, and they're talking about the history of World Supercross. I'm like, it's the first year. What are you talking about? And now are we including the old results, or what are we doing here?
No, of course. I mean, the World Supercross Championship has existed since I want to say before the 90s, but in the 90s, it was quite legitimate with racing in Paris and Japan, and other parts of Europe. They raced obviously in the early 2000s in Holland and in Geneva as World Supercross. So the FIM World Supercross Championship has existed for a number of years. Then Feld Entertainment bought those rights from Clear Channel in 2007 or 8 or whichever it was. Then they ran the championship for, the time that they did exclusively in the US. But it's still all in our view, it's still the FIM World Supercross Championship. Those are the rights that we have bought. It's just gone through a couple of different owners, and we're the newest one. So the WSX brand is brand new, but the FIM World Supercross Championship is not. I mean, it's had Chad Reed win series. It's had Eli Tomac win a championship. It's like that history is there, and it was the FIM World Championship, and so we're new and WSX is new.
Adam, I get it, but really, like that was the only reason it had the FIM was to keep someone from doing exactly what you guys are doing. So they essentially paid for the FIM to just because of a promoter war. It really wasn't. I mean, not one race was outside the United States, maybe a Canadian one once in a while, but I mean, it was an American series. And to call that a World Series to me, I think it almost cheapens the brand of what you guys are doing now. You're doing a true world now. The old stuff, yes, but what it is now, I don't know, man. I think we should just abandon that and start fresh. Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that opinion. I mean, obviously, some parts of it I agree with, but at the same time, I don't want to ignore the fact that people have won championships before, if they have. And if you bring, Chad Reed to one of our events, he's a 2-time world champion. You can't just ignore that fact, right? So I think I hear your point, but and we are starting new and we're doing something completely different and we're hanging our hats on being the first truly global world championship. But the history books and the results and the trophies say that there was previous world champions. So we don't want to ignore that either.
I almost think we can do it, but with an asterisk, like before, after, and because it was kill. I was getting hit up on my YouTube channel. Everyone's like, dude, what's going on? They said it's the second, like first they say it's inaugural, and then they've got a history. How do you have a history and an inaugural? It was confusing. So, yeah, and then now you guys are subject to WADA, right? Now, World Anti-Doping, which we despise here, and their punishments don't add up with motocross racing. They're on a 4-year penalty schedule, which doesn't add up with racing. Is it still the exact same as it was when it was in the United States?
It is, but it is something that we're working on because I agree with those points, and I think it's the alignment with WADA is because they have an Olympic, FIM have an Olympic alignment, which is important to them to recognize the sport on a global level and all those things. But you're 100% correct, is that the punishments don't fit the crime, because in a 4-year cycle doesn't make sense in this sport. And also the benefit that a supercross athlete gets isn't the same as what a marathon runner gets for doping, right? Like that's not you've still got to have immense talent to ride supercross and win. You could inject me with anything and I still won't be able to beat those guys. You know what I mean? So it's not the same. So I agree with the point, and it's something that we're working on. It's starting with, which we'll announce shortly, a process for at least the publicizing results quicker and those kinds of things, because that was also something that never made sense to me. It's kind of like someone gets tested, like it's no secret Ken Roczen got tested last year, but then they don't publicize the results. They should have publicized it within 2 weeks and just, I know there's complexities that I don't really understand, but they should have just been announced in 2 weeks. Ken Roczen was tested, is all clear and everything's good, but instead they don't sort of publicize it for reasons they have, which I don't really understand. And that just creates this whole level of angst and confusion for people, not knowing where this rider's future might lie, and what had happened with James Stewart in the past. To my understanding, that really screwed people over, particularly, in my understanding, Kawasaki at the time in the US. It was that he was contracted to, put them in a really difficult position because they've got, the world's fastest guy. How do we keep him on a contract? What happens? We don't know what's going to happen with his career and all these things. So at the very first point for us is the communication piece and how we overcome that. And the next step will be, how do what process do we have to undertake to review the whole punishment, and the whole punishment process, and what someone found guilty is guilty of, and what punishment do they get? So it's all something that we're very, very passionate about overcoming, because it is a big thing. There's a big negative. It's probably the biggest negative that the FIM has in the feedback to us is the way that was handled. So we need to fix it.
Literally, James deserved a punishment. He didn't fill out the proper paperwork and he got a ban, but it should be 25% of what he got. Literally it's a 4-year penalty versus that. Let's just take him to 25% and we're all good. It's problem solved, Adam.
I agree. And it's definitely on the agenda. No, but it's on the agenda, right? And I agree. I think it's important to note, it's not that we don't agree with that, and we are working on it. We've literally, it's been a topic with myself and our race director, Kevin Williams, that I've brought up multiple times about what are we doing? What do we have to do? I think people should know about us is that we're willing to push back and we're willing to challenge the status quo as hard as it takes to overcome these things, because if it doesn't make sense, then we got to fight for it. It just doesn't make sense, and we're willing to do that.
And now you said you have a race director. Now you're a promoter, and the race directors, there's this fine line where they got to be separate. what kind of differentiating do we have between, is there a different organization that employs him, or what are we doing? Are we just kind of, because the United States, it's ridiculous. The promoter is the sanctioned body. It's ridiculous. But is there a line to differentiate there?
It's an interesting one. There isn't currently. I mean, Kevin is someone, you know, to be transparent, that we engage to manage the racing components of what we do. And we are the promoter, or I am the, you know, in charge of the commercialization of what we're doing. And that part of it and the officiating is probably the thing that interests me the least. And it's not that it's not important, but I would rather the experts argue over the rules and the officiating of those rules. And, you know, I don't want to get into the rule book component, whilst we do have the ability to influence the rule book, you know, we're finalizing it as we speak, where FIM send it, here's the rule book. Do you have any feedback or comments? And we have the ability to influence the rule book, which is important. We made sure we had that in when we did this deal. I lean on someone like Kevin that knows in practice, you know, the challenges that are going to come from this. You know, I don't want to be like, well, we should just do this and just do that, and that's the way it should be. And he's like, but in practice that may not work. So, you know, I think you've got to lean on the experts on their areas of expertise, and he's got the FIM super license, understands how that world works, understands the politics of how all that works, which I don't. Like I said, I don't want to get embroiled in that. I don't want to get wrapped up in it. I want to focus on, you know, the big picture. So, you know, I think he does a good job of being impartial in that sense.
What you said there won me over. I understand in the United States, we're not dumb. We can see the difference. But if you can just be transparent, say, hey, listen, we need this. We're part of the organization, but we all need to influence some rules. Everybody's cool. But when you lie and then have a building down the road with an AMA license on it that's literally the same building as the promoter, we're like, come on, man. Like, it's ridiculous. But thank you for doing that. I'm a big fan of the World Supercross Series. I think you guys are onto something, and I love it. Where do you see it in 5 years, Adam?
I mean, I think that, you know, our strategy in 5 years is to be at 12 to 14 events around the world, to be truly global, you know, be well established. And I think at that time is when I genuinely feel that we'll have, you know, a world championship series that everyone should be proud and passionate for. You know, I think to your point before, you know, it's been challenging, and we probably didn't expect pushback from fans. I definitely didn't expect pushback from fans of what we're trying to achieve, because I think maybe our communication early wasn't good enough to say, hey, we're just big fans. We just think this thing can be bigger and we want to take it around the world. That's all. Like, you know, we're not here to take away from anything that happens in the US. Like I subscribe to you know, to watch Supercross live in the outdoors, like myself. Like, I'm a fan. I watch it every weekend. You know, like I said, I was watching with my wife on the weekend when Kenny had that incident. Like, we never started this to be like, well, screw those guys. We can do it bigger and better, and we're going to take over this thing. What we said was, and I have said since 2015, when I first started with my business partner, running the WSX Open event in Sydney, we think that we know that there's fans for Supercross outside the US. We've got to take it to them. And that's what we did in Australia. And we did that successfully until sort of 2019 with the WSX Open event. The Paris event has done it for 40 years and proven that there's a big following in Europe, as of other events. Geneva, there's been events in Barcelona, Italy, that, you know, there's been a number of Supercross events around the world that proves the US isn't the only place where Supercross can be successful. And all we said was, we believe that we should take that around the world, and we can link all these regions together and give those fans something to go and enjoy firsthand. And when those FIM rights came available, that was kind of our window to say, you know, we can actually do this. Because before that, and in the US, the FIM rights really don't mean much, and World Championship in the US, it's not as important as it is in other regions. But if you go to Brazil and say, we've got the official World Championship for Supercross, it carries weight. It means something, as it does here in Australia. Basically everywhere but the US, it's a really important thing. So that's why we kind of jumped on that, and you know, that's what we're here to do, is just take it around the world. You know, we're hugely appreciative of what the US has done to build this amazing sport to what it is. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Feld are the ones that have created the names like Chad Reed and Eli Tomac and Chase Sexton and Jeremy McGrath back in the day. They built that. And all we're saying is, you know, hats off. They've done an amazing job. And we think that there's an audience around the rest of the world that we want to take it to. And we want everyone to come on the journey with us.
Were you surprised at how much pushback you got from them? And what I was surprised is the manufacturers going, "Hey, we're telling our riders they can't go." I was like, "Wait, what? You're telling these guys they can't go because it's?" I was blown away. Were you blown away with that?
I wasn't surprised by pushback from Feld. Well, I was a bit surprised by pushback from Feld because we went to them at the start and said, "Hey, we're fans of what you do. We're not here to get in the way. Our calendar will be separate. We're not going to try and run head to head." We were very transparent about that at the start, but we did kind of admit also that we don't feel that we can do what we need to do within the window of outside the outdoors window as well. We didn't think that it was possible to really run a world championship, especially in 3 or 4 years' time, that doesn't clash with something. I think that was, we didn't really feel like that was an option. So I was surprised in that sense, and I was particularly surprised with the manufacturers because I felt that, and it is, to be clear, the manufacturers around the world are very supportive. Honda sponsors our event in Australia, as does Yamaha, as does KTM, and Suzuki has historically too. Like the support is there, and we've got great relationships building in Japan and even in Austria, etc. But it was more just the US distributors saying, we're going to lock down and protect what happens here in the US, and we're going to stop the riders going to do this series. And I think that part caught me by surprise, particularly when there's events that not clashing with what they were already doing. If it's getting in the way of potential income earning potential for some of these athletes, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I respect the fact that they're just trying to protect their own interests, I guess. And they, I didn't expect it. I guess it's a compliment that they saw us as a threat to that, but it wasn't our intention.
Yeah, I was kind of, when I heard the Ken Roczen deal, I was last year. So for people that don't know, Honda stepped up and said, if you sign a contract to go world, our offer disappears. Ken, the badass that he is, signed the contract anyway and fulfilled his obligation to you guys. But yeah, it's interesting. And I know you're trying to get some more guys over there, but you're getting more of that this year. Can you talk about any of that?
I think it's going to be an ongoing situation for a couple of years where there's contract cycles, and it's not so much now about people getting in the way or specifically trying to block us or anything like that. But there's the realities, if someone's got if Jason Anderson's got a multi-year motocross and supercross deal with Kawasaki, then if our races are gonna compete or gonna clash or cross over in any way, then that won't work. And that's understandable. They're trying to focus their attention on those two, domestic championships in the US. Got to respect that. But each rider has their own situation, right? And Kenny had made the decision that motocross and outdoors wasn't for him anymore, and he detailed that why. And so we're a perfect fit. And no different than Justin Brayton in years past, or McGrath in years past, or Chad Reed in years past, James Stewart in years past. A lot of them have made that decision at a point in time. And so we're just positioning ourselves as an option for those that see Supercross as being something they want to specialize in. And so again, not trying to rip anything away from anyone else, but just be like, hey, if you want to race Supercross in the US at the start of the year, then you want to travel the world with World Supercross and try and be a specialist in that field, then this could be something that interests you.
Yeah, a guy like Justin Hill, who is a Supercross specialist. And I'm telling you, watch him, Adam. I think he's going to be one of your guys battling for that championship this year. What do you got as far as, you got any rider news you can share with this or anything? I know you got Ken Roczen signed up last week. Anything you can drop with us, or what do you got?
When's this going live? There's a bunch of announcements.
I'll post it tomorrow. I'll hold it if you need me to hold it. If you want to tell me something, I'll hold it for a couple of days, whatever.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of announcements going out tomorrow. Colt Nichols being one of those that's confirmed. Justin Brayton racing again, which is fantastic. Justin Hill's already been announced. Josh Hill as well will be one of those. I hope to see that like a Kevin Morantz will get a start with someone that hasn't yet, but that won't be announced. But I hope that he will. Like, there's still some seats to fill, but there's a whole bunch. Kyle Peters, Chris Blows. Yeah, geez, there's a whole list of riders that'll be announced tomorrow, which is great. It's really exciting. I mean, the standard has improved from last year. I think you're right in that. I think Justin is going to be a dark horse now, because I think like the Bud Racing Kawasaki team, when they kind of locked him down, I mean, it was almost a gamble on their behalf. But now, I mean, the guys just continued to go like this, you know, throughout the AMA series, and now it's like, holy shit, that could have been the smartest move ever, because he's doing incredibly well. So I think it's going to be good. I mean, Colt, we were so excited to have Colt. He was going to race last year, but couldn't because he had an injury. But then this Honda HRC, I think, opportunity presented himself. He had signed with Rick Ware for 2 years, and then it got tricky there. But he's you know, coming back to race, which is coming to race this year for the first time, which I think will be awesome. You know, personally, I don't think Kenny will have it all his own way. There may be more, like there's other top riders that really want to race, but there's contractual things to work through and stuff. It's a complex situation, as everyone knows. So, and the higher level they are, you know, at Kenny's level or above, the more complex it is, right? Because they're getting paid big money to race in the US, and so therefore, you know, there's got to be some leniency, or there's got to be support from their brands or their team in the US to give them a reason to want to let them do it, which I think there is plenty, because I think global exposure is one, but, you know, the ability to test. We don't run a production rule. We're factory bikes. So if they want to test things for the US season the following year, they can. You know, gate drops. I mean, I don't think I don't know how anyone could deny that gate drops has helped Kenny by doing what he did with us at the end of last year. I think it helped Max Anstey enormously. And then Dean Wilson's just had a really good year. Like, these are, you know, and Josh Hill raced Supercross with us, you know, we raced those 2 rounds last year. You know, I think it's clear that there's an opportunity, if you're a Supercross specialist or racing in WSX, that it will also help your US performances as well, which I think some riders are starting to see.
Well, and Adam, I've said this for the longest time. I think that they're 2 completely separate disciplines, motocross and supercross. And why are we asking these athletes to do both? It's ridiculous. To me, you should just pick one and go that direction. We wouldn't ask. I think a GNCC off-road racer is more suited to go race off-road outdoors than a supercross guy. That's just my opinion. And I think it's getting further and further. The bikes are completely different, but yeah. And I know you can't say it, but I'll say it. We want Cooper Webb in the World Supercross, and I wish, and I know the stuff behind the scenes, there's contracts and stuff, but Cooper Webb and the people holding him back, don't hold him back. We want Cooper Webb. How great would that be? Roczen versus Webb this year? Maybe? No, I don't know. We'll see. So,
yeah, but, I mean, I'll say that I'm a huge Cooper Webb fan. You know, when we first launched WSX last year, we went and had dinner with him in Charlotte. You know, I mean, he's just a stand-up great guy. You know, I know he's a determined racer and he plays mental games, but straight up, he's a great human being. And so we would obviously love him to be part of it. If he can or he can't, remains to be seen. But obviously we'll be, you know, we're some of his biggest cheerleaders. I mean, he raced our first WSX Open in 2015. And if anyone doesn't know the history, you know, he and Ricky Carmichael essentially kind of saved the day for us, because it was our very first event. We launched on sale with James Stewart and Chad Reed as the headlines, going head to head with each other. It was a bit of rivalry at the time. Chad's obviously an Aussie, and you know, so he's like God here for a motocross guy. And James unfortunately pulled out of racing, and which was devastating for all of us, myself included, but all the fans and ticket purchasers, because we'd sold that event out within 10 days or so, and then he pulled out. So, but Cooper stood up, and so did RC, and said, we'll come down, and they made it an incredible event, an amazing show. And he came back the following year, and you know, our entire stadium sung happy birthday for him for his 21st birthday, which was really special. You know what I mean? Like, we've got a special connection. That guy, like I said, I give him a hug when I see him. You know, he's a great person. So, you know, we would love to have him if it can ever work out, for sure.
I'll say this, the WSX Open, it doesn't look like there's a more fun event to attend, period. It just looks like you guys are having a good time. So one last thing, you're Australian. The baddest dudes right now in the sport, Hunter and Jet Lawrence, are both Australian. Do we got an inside track? What are we doing here? And I know Myrtle, the agent, like, come on, Adam, we got to get these guys here. Come on.
Look, I mean, you know, we would obviously love that too. I mean, such big fans. I mean, we, you know, I started the Jetson brand that my wife now runs with Lucas, you know, and they've just done the Hunter range as well. So we're super connected. The best, you know, we couldn't be closer fans to them, and I couldn't, you know, Mertz and I go way back 20 odd years, known each other for a long time. But like I said, like, it comes down, it's not easy. You know, these guys have got contractual obligations to race in the US. They've got to perform. They're stepping up to 450s. There's all this stuff.
Yes.
You know, Jet did his first ever Supercross race at our WSX Open event in 2019. I've got the bike in our WSX office now. It's sitting there. You know what I mean? Like, there's a fantastic connection. And if and when it can work, then you know, by all means, that'll be a fantastic day. We'd be stoked with it.
Truthfully, I feel like it's just a matter of time. We just got to get through this little weird protective thing that the United States Series has right now. Once they get over that and realize that it can grow for everybody, I think we're going to see some pretty cool stuff. But Adam, I don't want to keep you all day. You're a busy man. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. You have a wonderful evening, and thanks for taking time with us. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. I think, you know, we appreciate what you guys do and the media and the support in the US. We do have a lot of fans supporting us as well. So it means a lot. You know, the Americans are the founding fathers of Supercross, and we want to pay homage to that, and we want to celebrate that, take it around the world, take a party with us. You know, it's something we're proud of. We're proud of people saying that they had the best time at WSX Open over the years, and that's what WSX is all about. We want us all to be on this journey. It's not about us versus anyone. We just want anyone that loves Supercross to come with us.
Well, the WSX looks like 90s moto recreated. I love it, man. That's pretty cool. So
I don't know if it's as fun as what Fro and McGrath had back in those days, but we definitely have a good time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. You have a wonderful evening, or wonderful day. It's day over there, right? So
it is. We're just getting started. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for making the time.